and welcome once again everyone to I've Been Playing. Today we're talking about Code Vein. Now, Code Vein is another in a long and ever-expanding list of Souls-like games. And while that is true in many respects, there are some things that this one does a little bit differently. First of all, and probably the most notable, is the aesthetic. It is one of the most anime things ever. That is, I'm sure, immediately apparent upon seeing the footage that should be playing right now. And because of that, there is a wild character creator and a lot of unnecessary jiggle physics. I mean, they're blowing in the wind. They don't do that, guys. But yes, this is very obviously Souls-inspired. It's your stamina-based combat. You've got your equivalent of Estus. You've got your different character classes and your various stats that are pretty much similar. And you've got your difficult gameplay. Now, I would say that the gameplay is not actually as difficult most of the time, with the exception of the bosses, which I guess is accurate. Not generally as difficult as a Soulsborne. At least, I didn't find it to be so, except the one boss I got stuck on and barely got past and kind of stopped playing at. So, those are the ways that it is similar. There are some ways that it's not similar, however. The first being that the story is very much in your face. Now, because it's an anime type thing, it is long and convoluted and a little bit complicated and a little bit hard to understand, but it is there. Basically, you are a revenant, which is pretty much a vampire because you have to drink blood to survive, and there is these blood veins that run under the world, and there are these blood beads, I think they're called, that you can drink from to sustain yourself, and then there are vestiges because you don't have your memories, and you collect vestiges of the people, and you can collect their blood codes, and blood codes are basically your character classes, and you use those to gain different skills, which I don't even remember the word for, they're just skills. And it's a lot of complicated nonsense having to do with blood. And I'm gonna be honest, I kind of tuned some of it out because I just wanted to hit more monsters with big swords. So there very much is a story. So that's one big way it differs from Dark Souls, is that there is an actual story that it tells you very much up front. The other way is the skills I mentioned. Now, you have to use whatever the soul equivalent is in this to help you unlock skills, and then you can master those skills. So basically, at first, these skills are tied to a character class, but after you use them and master them, you can use them with any of the classes that you want. So if you prefer one of the other classes, but one of the classes you don't use very often has a good spell, like fire, which is kind of what I had to do with the boss I ended up getting stuck on. I had to do a lot of fire, not that it really seemed to help much, but anyway, I beat it eventually. I mastered those fire spells and then switched back to the fighter, which is weird for me. Normally I go for a dex build, but I just found the strength build to work better for me in this instance. So then I could whack things with a giant Zweihander and also set them on fire. Now, in theory, this is really interesting. In practice, I found that I basically found the few spells that I liked. I used them constantly, and then I just used the same sword. There was very little experimentation, and there was very little difference in the combat. I found it was very much the same, hit the same buttons, do the same things over and over again. There was no variety. I gave up on parrying because it didn't seem to work for me. Backstabs never seem to work for me, because another thing that's different is that you can have a character follow you the entire game, and they always ruined my stealth when I tried to sneak up and backstab, so I just gave up on it. And eventually none of the things were that hard to kill. The worst part was when a Lost would invade. So Lost are the people, the Revenants, who succumb to madness because they didn't get enough blood, I think is the general idea. So every once in a while they would invade even though I was offline, so it's not like it was other players, it was just NPCs randomly invading with a ton of other enemies, and it was a pain. Those are the only times I really felt like the combat got that challenging, that and the bosses, but even the bosses, some of them, they weren't that, they had different movesets, sure, but they weren't that hard to beat. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think it felt a little bit too repetitive for my tastes. A lot of it, like I said, the combat felt very samey to me. It didn't feel like there was any strategy involved most of the time. It was just wail on things with your sword, back up, wail on things with your sword. It wasn't that interesting, even with the addition of all the spells, which I don't normally use in Dark Souls and stuff like that, because they just confuse me, and I will use them eventually, but for now, I'm not gonna touch those in those sorts of games. But the magic was easier to use, but I don't know, it almost made it too easy sometimes, and it was too easy to rely on it, even though you had to collect stuff to use it, obviously, which was essentially your MP, but you were collecting stuff from the enemies you were killing to restore it. And it just, I don't know, it felt very much like I was just going through the same motions over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually, you know, I got to that boss that I couldn't beat. I did finally end up beating it. I took a couple days off because I was like, you know what, I don't know if I'm having enough fun to make this worth it. And then I tried, and then I got some fire spells that made it at least a little easier, and then I continued on to the next area, and the next area is confusing as hell, because it's a cathedral, and it all looks the same, and there are a bunch of obnoxious, annoying enemies, and I don't know where I'm going, because as far as I know, I wandered around everywhere, and I don't know how to open the final doors. I don't even know where the end point is, because I don't know where I've been, and it just all looks and feels the same, and I gave up. And I don't know if I'll return to it again or not. Like I said, I was having fun, but I don't know if I was having enough fun with it to actually finish the game. But that's my overall impression of Code Vein. Have you played this one, and what do you think of it? Let me know down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this. Leave a like if you did, and consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed, because I do one of these every Monday, and something almost every day of the week that you can check out. I'll see you next time!